Joining us now to discuss, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being with us. Let's start with the protests in Cuba. I have a lot to ask you about, but obviously this is not just a political issue. It's a personal issue for you. You're the son of Cuban immigrants. It is extremely unusual for so many Cubans to take to the streets against the government. What is your response as you see these images?
Well, it's an incredible, historic, I think, a set of protests. It's beyond Havana, which of course is very urban. It is the breadth and scope of different parts of the island that are in protest. And this is the frustration of years of a regime whose policies ultimately do not allow the Cuban people to realize their hopes and dreams and aspirations and have a better life. And COVID has only gone ahead, as in our own country we saw the inequities that was created by that were shown by COVID to exist. And in Cuba, the failure of the regime to deal with COVID has only, shown the greater consequences that the Cuban people are facing at large. And so it's a historic moment. It's a time for the United States and others in the world to give echo to the cries of the Cuban people and to create an opportunity for them to realize change in their own country.
After President Obama restored diplomatic relations in 2015, President Trump, he reversed those policies. On the campaign trail, Joe Biden pledged to go back to the Obama-era policies, but he hasn't changed anything yet. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the president has had a time to review the actual policies under President Obama. And all of the openings that President Obama made, which were one-sided, unilateral in terms of concessions, showed themselves to create absolutely no change inside of Cuba. The regime still arrested peaceful protesters. The regime still put political dissidents in jail. The regime still rationed the Cuban people, even as they had dollar stores bursting with food, but the Cuban people could not get access to that unless they had access to dollars. So the regime showed no change, but what it did do is profit dramatically by the revenues that flowed into the regime, because the regime controls all tourism and all agriculture sales inside of Cuba. Raul Castro's son and son-in-law control the two major corporations which are part of the Cuban military. So the regime enriched itself. The Cuban people never saw any benefit from it. So the result of that, I think, is that the Biden administration looked and said, wait a minute, that didn't seem to work. We have to think about what exactly we should do in this regard.
So, when we were down in Cuba in 2015 for the reopening of the embassy, dissidents told me exactly what you said, that this was not going to work because Obama was not requiring any concessions, any reform. Trump came in, reversed it all. It seems to be that you're saying Biden should not just go back to Obama's policies. He needs to require some concessions by the Cuban government before returning to normalized relations.
Well, yes, I don't think the administration should just return to the Obama policies, which show themselves not to succeed in the aspirations that they had. In fact, I have given the White House a white paper on a whole host of policy options they should consider as it relates to how do we embrace the Cuban people, but at the same time make it clear to its dictatorship, because Diaz-Canel is a different name than the Castros, but he is cut of the same cloth. His verbiage and his speeches are all of the same thing. And so when the Cuban people say that in fact they want to see change, patria y vida, what does that mean? It means country and life. Yes, they can have a life and their country, but it doesn't have to be under the circumstances that exist now.
Let's talk about some Democratic priorities, because today President Biden met with Attorney General Merrick Garland and local law enforcement leaders and mayors about reducing violent crime. The new Biden plan includes using some excess COVID relief funds to hire more police officers. Do you support that?
Sure. I mean, look, the police officers are a critical part of law enforcement. It's one element of it, but I like the comprehensive plan that the president has put out, and that is considering engaging, and that's one element of it. But at the end of the day, as much as I embrace the president's initiative, Congress needs to act. You know, my legislation, for example, to eliminate high-capacity magazines. High-capacity magazines are about high-capacity killing. Universal background checks. These are simple, common-sense gun safety measures that the president cannot do simply by the stroke of a pen. It needs the action of Congress, and I don't know how many more must die before Congress will act.
Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Menendez of New Jersey, thank you so much. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to be with you.